Tanya. Welcome to the Claude Code. So excited to have you here. Yeah.
Woo! I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, now please remind me, how long have we known each other? It has to be at least like 10, 15 years.
It's definitely around the 10-year mark
Okay.
because I've been in LA now for 12 years, which is
Oh,
crazy. Yeah.
oh my God. Is that it? Really? 12 years? Because I was there
Is
for
that
18.
it?
I was
Yeah.
18. It would put me at 22 years right now if I was still there.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
feel like 12, like to me, I'm like, how the hell has it been 12 years? Like that's amazing, concerning, questionable, like I don't know, all the above.
Well, the fact that you're there and survived COVID,
True.
that is like a major accomplishment.
True, I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys, Tanya is also like me, a professional backup dancer. Now, tell me, do you still do that at all or no?
I don't pursue it, but I will if there's a job that comes up that feels aligned with time, hours, rate, vibe, I'll do it.
Okay. Okay, I like that. And so now you are a mindset coach.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that transition for you.
Yeah. So that happened the year after the pandemic, so in 2021. And my story started with the thought of turning 30 in I turned 29 in 2021 in February, and I was like, I'm broke as fuck. Like I'm broke. I'm a struggling dancer. I'm paycheck to paycheck. And obviously 2020 was a crazy year for the industry. Like there was no industry. And also being in LA, like at the time on a work visa, like there's that whole challenge, like being from Australia, not being able to get unemployment. So just floating here in the States, not being able to work, not making any money, not having any support, but then being like, what would I go home for though? Like my relationship's here, my life's here. So I'm going to stick it out. I'm just going to have to like survive. So then 2021 rolled around. I turned 29 and I just had that moment of like, I'm about to be 30 and there's literally no way I'm going to let myself turn 30 in this state. Like, I can't. So that thought inspired me to figure out how can I make my own money. And at the time, this was about a year before I started my business. And I remember just being like, I don't I don't know what to do. Like, what would I do? Maybe I'll teach fitness. So I tried that for a little bit and I was like, how can I make more money doing this? And I remember just getting to a place with that being like, I don't even care about fitness. Like, that's so not me. Like, I remember being like, okay, if I'm going to take fitness seriously, I should do a nutrition course. I should do a PT course. And the thought of doing that for me was like, gag, like, not interested. That sounds horrendous for me. And then I remember laying in my bed being like, what can I do that I already know how to do really well? I'm already trained in it, like that I could do with my eyes closed. And I was like, why don't I teach heels online? Like I could do that with my eyes shut. So I started doing online heels classes, and this is where I started to like be not scared of Instagram. Like, for the longest time being in the industry, your Instagram's your portfolio, basically. It's like your resume. You don't want to show too much personality, too much private life, because it's like, this is where you book jobs. So then I started to put myself out there. Long story short, the heels classes built up, and I had women joining from all over the world. It was incredible. And every heels class was started with like a full empowerment speech. I was like talking about believing in yourself, going after your dream, risking it all, like being confident, and not just confident in your dream, but confident in you being like, I got this shit. Like I can do whatever it takes. Like I can do this. And I just started to be like, I can't stop talking about it. So like maybe there's something here. And I was in that mode of wanting to really take my life to the next level. Like it was very at the forefront of my focus. So I was ready to take the next step, didn't know what that next step would look like. But as we were just talking about in the podcast before, when you want the support shows up. a mentor kind of floated across my Instagram, didn't even know what mentorship was, didn't even understand that term. And she was selling a program on money energetics, your wealth consciousness, change your relationship with money. And I was like, me, like this is me. I'm ready. Like I need to elevate this. And I took that course, and even just the act of investing in myself now in hindsight was the thing that broke the chain of who I'd been. Like
Mm.
spending like $2,500 on a program at that time in my life, like was so like ridiculous and not who I am. And in that moment, I became someone else just from the investment. Like it opened up a new energy for me. It opened up a new way I saw myself. And within 8 weeks, I was driving a brand new Mercedes. We were upgrading our apartment. Like started making more money. And how I became a mindset coach, I feel like this is very long-winded, but what ended up happening was my life skyrocketed from changing the way I saw myself, changing my mindset, not accepting my beliefs as facts, changing my beliefs, and seeing the results I got from just thinking differently. I literally was like, I need to tell everyone. Anyone who listens, like, I've got shit for you. And that's how my business started.
But was that just like, did you just, I mean, did you practice this? Like, where do you think this mindset came for you? What you were talking about earlier about like believing in you and believing that you can do anything. Like, where does that come from? And then that shift that you had about you saw yourself differently and you began to think differently. Was that a process you adopted, or was it like all of a sudden I'm this new woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Really good question. So I think for the most part, and now in hindsight, being able to look at that phase of my life and that 10-year journey as a dancer in LA, like to even do what we did, like I moved to LA at 19 from Australia, like just to do that, like I've always had a high belief in myself, like the belief, the confidence in my ability and skill, like all of that foundational stuff was there. But the problem wasn't, for me, the challenge wasn't about going for big goals. It was my belief in what my life had to look like in order to achieve that success. So I believed in the dream, but I believed I needed to be broke. I believed it was going to be hard. I believed I was going to struggle. So like I set myself up for that. And even now I look back at that 10 year and I'm like, it's mind blowing that I even booked any jobs with that mindset. But like even being on a job, it would be a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was. My mindset was back to it. This is it. I don't know how long it's going to be. I better save all my money. It's going to be hard. I'm back to my struggle. That was my mindset. Like, so that's what I would manifest.
Yeah.
Weeks, months, no money, no jobs. And I went through this cycle of, and when I started to do this mindset work, I started to unpack all of this old thought patterns and what was different when I would eventually manifest a job. Like, was there a different thought? Like I started to try and figure out my process. And basically what I realized was I would get so caught up in my old belief of after this job, it's going to be hard. I need to save every penny, struggle, struggle, struggle. Don't celebrate yourself. Don't go on a vacation, kind of like that life, until I got to a point of in that cycle of being like, nothing's working. I just need a, I give up for a second. Like, I'm just going to take a few weeks off bashing myself, and the job would come in and I would book a job and then the cycle would start again. So until I realized this, I didn't understand that that was a belief of my quality of life while I lived my dreams. So
Got it.
that is what I ended up working on. What my life got to look like, who I am while I pursue my dreams. How can I enjoy the process? If I believed I could enjoy the process, what would I do in that space in between where I am and where I want to be? And this was the work for me. And this is like the big work that I do with my clients now.
Amazing. And have you ever had moments where you feel like you are falling back to that old mentality, the scarcity mindset, fear of like, oh my gosh, like do those ever creep back into your space?
All the time, constantly. They
Okay.
never leave, honestly. Like it's a conscious choice to say no. And
Well,
it's like constantly being aware, constantly wanting the life that I feel like I deserve and choosing it every day, every moment, every week. As much as I can have the awareness around it is the choice. And sure, sometimes it's easier when like things are going really well. It's easier for me to be like more in alignment to what I want to believe, what the life I want to create. It's obviously easier when things are easy, but when I am in that challenging time and I'm going through a season of growth or like just needing to level up, and you know, it's a part of the process, but that's where I remind myself, like, this is where everything I practice what I preach. This is where I need to choose it even when I don't want to. This is where I need to go back to my modules, read a book, get outside, like all those things that we do effortlessly when things are just easy breezy is like, oh no, here we go. Like, this is the work. The work for me is to feel good. So what do I need to do that? Because old self wants to grind it out.
And now when you're working with your clients, where like where do you think the negative mindset even comes from to begin with? Like, do you address this with them? Old limiting beliefs of like, here's where this comes from and here's how you change it.
Yeah. So I feel like square one, like always, like the foundation is getting clear on what they actually believe about what they believe. Like, if you believe there's a difference, this is like something that was so fascinating for me. There's a difference in believing in a dream and believing the dream is possible for you. And that is like a really fine line. Like, for example, believing believing in wealth and believing you can be a wealthy woman. That's a different practice. So people's beliefs maybe they're of like, I want this goal, I want this dream, and it's something I'm thinking about, but there's a reason why they don't have it. There's a reason why they're not making moves towards it. There's a reason why it's not here yet. And most of the time it's because there's a deep-rooted subconscious belief of like, it's for everyone else but not me. I'm not good enough. How could this happen for me? Like, there's the stories that are like tangled in. So that's like, anytime someone works with me in a close proximity, so either my mastermind or like one-on-one, it's always being like, it's so funny because it's always the thing. It's like, there's the dream, here's my goal, here's my dream, and then it slowly trickles out. And this is why I don't know if I can do it. And this is why I feel like maybe not right now. And this is why I haven't done it yet. And it's like, here we go. There it is.
Yeah. But one thing I love about you is you have obviously taken like massive risks.
Yeah.
Not like you moved to LA from Arkansas, which is where I moved there from. Okay. Like just a few states over. Like you were 19 years old and you said, I live in Australia, but I want to go to LA to pursue dance. And that's not just like a little hop, skip, and a step. It's also you need a visa for that. You have to find somebody to live with. You have like what like when you were 19, like what was that what propelled you? Like did you have support from anyone or were you like I'm saving a bunch of money and I believe so much that this dream belongs to me. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. So I had a pretty unique upbringing in Australia in regards to, I was really lucky with like the studio that I grew up training at. I
Okay.
was in touch with like in Australia at that time, the like best choreographers taught at that studio. I was like really young, and I started working really young. So I did like the VMAs in Australia when I was 15 and like these big award shows and big TV shows. So I was working really young. So one of the biggest hurdles that dancers can face when they want to move to LA is like, you need to show a lot of work, that you've worked a lot in your home country. So I had actually worked a lot and had like so much evidence to prove that I was already working. But because of that upbringing, I was very aware of what was going on in LA. It was like the only thing I cared about from about 14 years onwards. Like, it was the only thing I wanted. I would dream about it. And this is how like crazy I was, which now looking back, I'm like, I was totally manifesting the shit out of this. Like, so I had a world map up pinned up in my bedroom wall at 14, and I circled Sydney and I circled LA, and I would stare at it. Like I was crazy. I was like, I was like, I'm going to be there. And I would come here like once a year. I would come for about a week or 2 weeks to train. I was obsessed with moving to LA. I came here when I was 19 on a 1 month vacation, which was the first time I'd been here by myself. And I had also just finished a contract, like a Universal Studios contract in another country. So I was already working. I was already like, I just lived in Singapore for a year as an 18-year-old.
Wow.
And I made a lot of money on that contract, but every dollar I was like LA. So I was saving it for LA. I didn't know I was going to move at 19, but it ended up working out that way. But I don't even know what your question was. What was your question?
Like what at 19, like you pretty much
Oh,
answered it. What propelled you to just be like, I'm going to LA?
yeah.
Really?
Okay. Okay, so that was the backstory. But to answer your actual question, which is something which this context I use even now with the way that I move in my life, is like when the excitement outweighs the fear, I'll do anything. And
Mm.
that was what it was for me. I was scared. I was like by myself. I literally landed in LA, just a suitcase and big dreams, being like, got to open a bank account. I've got to learn how to drive on the other side of the road. I've got to get a social security card. I've got to and like, I didn't even know how to do this in Australia. Like, so my dad's not here to like help me find a car, um, or to teach me how to drive. So, like, I was scared, but the fear was so much less than the excitement. And I feel like this little like metric is, you can see this with so many things. Like
Yeah.
even when you think about a relationship, like when you maybe have a friend that is dating someone, you're like, come on, you got to leave them. It's like the fears outweighing the excitement of the life on the other side. But there's that moment that they get to that point being like, fuck this, and the excitement for the life outweighs the fear, and they move and they
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah.
that time frame of how long it takes you to like get your excitement level higher than the fear, it's up to you, and it varies. But I believe in that 100%, because we do scary shit on the daily, but especially running a business, being a dancer in LA, like we have to put ourselves in positions where there's fear and risk constantly, but the excitement's too high. Like there's no other option. I don't care about any other option.
Right.
So that was kind of
You
the intention back then,
said
and how,
it. Yes, you said obsessed. And I
yeah,
just wanted to like point that out that like when you become obsessed with something, that excitement, it's like I was obsessed with like, losing the weight. Like I was obsessed with getting that woman back, that body back. And I don't think that anyone should be shamed for anything that they become obsessed with unless you're going about it in an unhealthy way. But that obsession will really propel you to make moves. And I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to like become obsessed with things. Like they almost talk themselves out of it. Like, oh no, I don't need that. I don't need that body. I don't, pursuing that. But what's really cool about you is you just take the risks, even the $2,500 you spent on your mentor. And it's that same thing of like, I always say, people pray and they manifest. You have to go into action.
yeah.
And the answers are constantly being thrown in front of you. And it's people like you who see the answer, feel the answer, and take the jump.
Yeah, and it's not easy. Like even though it like may seem, and even with your track record of like what you achieved and how you do it, it may like seem like, and the way I'm explaining it, it's like, oh, it's a simple process. But in the moment, there's like, even with some of the bigger investments I've made, and I know you've made them too, it's like there's that moment of like, have I
Nope.
lost it? Like, is this going too far? But for me, especially when it comes to investments, the way that I'm able to like, my process with making any investment in myself is always like imagining how I would feel after I make it. And once if and I've done this multiple times, and sometimes I imagine myself after the investment and I'm like not as lit up, but there's like there's been some big investments. And when I can connect to who I'd be on the other side of that, it's like, I can't unsee it. Like I've opened the door and I can't unsee it. So then I'll sleep on it. But I'm still scared as shit. And I also still think I'm crazy. And I am also still like, oh my God, AJ's gonna literally be like, I'm losing it. Like I'm losing my mind. Like I'm still going through it. I want to
Yeah.
throw up while I make the payment,
Yeah.
but I can't unsee what I just saw in my mind. And
Yeah.
that's my sign of like, it's a green light, even though it makes no fucking sense.
None. And I love that you're bringing this up because I think people do think like somehow we're different. Oh, it's easier for you, or oh, you have more money. Or when I started this whole thing was investing in my health and I didn't have that money. I lived with my parents. I was 40 years old with my toddler and my husband, like trying to like do something during COVID in the entertainment industry. Like I, like you, was like teaching heels on online and I didn't like it. I was like, I can't do this. But um wait, I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Um wow.
I'll
What
tell
were
you
we?
what I will say though, while you think of your train of thought, or maybe this will spark your thought. When I like in that 10-year window when I was just pursuing the industry for like that 19-year-old, that energy of her, that excitement, all of that, I lost that somewhere along the way. The
Yeah.
fear of going out, coloring outside the lines, being who I wanted to be. I lost like that. And I wanted to just book the jobs, fit in, be the specs, like have my perfect Instagram video, do the things that I feel like this is the right thing. These are the steps. And I remember, and this is where I fell out of alignment with that identity and that dream. It was time to upgrade the dream. And I just didn't know who I was without dance. So I let it go on for so long.
Like you hung on to dance for so long.
Yeah, like I didn't want to go to class. I didn't want to go to the auditions, but I was like, I should have to. Who like
Mm,
what do I want? Dance. What do I want? Dance. Like it was like a reflex in my brain. Like I couldn't think of anything else when it's been your life. Like there was no life beyond it. And what I think is so interesting is I remember in the pandemic, my husband AJ started to shift industries and he got into sales. And I remember doing a lot of journaling and visualization of like us being married and this next level life of that we were going to live. And I remember being like, I can see what he's doing, but I can't see what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what it is. It's
mm,
not like, it's not that it's not dance. I just like when I'm journaling about who I am, I can't see it because I wasn't even available for it to be anything else for years.
wow. Like
Yeah.
how long? Like,
Well, I started my business in 2022. So that was 2020 that I was like
okay.
unpacking this with the pandemic, but it was the pandemic that I swear helped me do this because I even said to AJ the other day, I was like, if I wasn't forced to stop, Claude, I don't think I would have.
Wow.
Like I don't think I would have. I was obsessed with it and not in a good way anymore. It
Yeah.
was just so normal for me to flow that way, move that way, and live that life that if I didn't give myself the spaciousness to actually be like, who am I without it? And the permission to explore that, thanks
Wow.
to the pandemic, I would have just been like, I want the tour, I want this TV show. Like it would have just kept going.
And then you have to wonder too, because for me, I don't know about you, but I started being like, who do I want that tour for?
Yeah.
Is it really for me, or is it because my parents will be proud? All my childhood friends will be like, oh, wow, how cool, Claude's on tour with, whoever. And I really, just like you, like the pandemic really helped me be like, I I actually don't want to go back to that industry.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually don't have any desire. Now, I only know this because of the conversation that we had earlier for your podcast, but you said that it took you a while to like really step into being a mindset coach. Like you knew you had the tools, you knew you had the gift,
Mm-hmm.
but there was something in that transition instead of just blah as I do. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I just, yeah, it was really challenging. Yeah, it was really challenging. How do I word it? Like, what was it? I just remember like journaling and writing, like, I don't know how to be this version of me, but I know how to be Tanya the dancer really well. And I'm confident as her. I feel sexy as her. I wear clothes that are her. And I know how to post as her. I don't know how to like, I was like Bambi, like trying to find my footing in like this new identity. I was like, I don't know how to speak as her. I don't know how to feel confident was really the thing. I don't know how to be confident in this next identity because I don't know how to be her. And there was like a really pivotal moment. It was probably like 6 months into my business, and my business did well pretty much from the get-go. Like as soon as I started, it did well. And there was about 6 months, 6 or 7 months into it. I remember walking my dog and like saying this mantra over and over again because I was struggling so much with like this identity bullshit with what I know, what I want to be showing up online as, but why I keep like not letting that through. And I was walking my dog being like, I'm willing to see myself differently. I'm willing to see myself differently. And I just kept saying it because it just was so hard for me. I don't know why. And I know not everyone like goes through it that intensely, but it really just was confusing.
Yeah. And you know what though, Tanya, like I think if anyone is going through, if anyone's willing to grow, like
Yeah,
when you pursue growth, you're going to come up against having to shed things that no longer serve you in order to be that next version of you. Like the Tanya who is now the mindset coach, like you're forced to like shed the things that aren't going to serve you there. But when you're in that like limbo period, it's terrifying.
it is. And you know what actually started to create the confidence in this new identity was when I realized the two aren't separate. Like who I was as Tanya the dancer is Tanya the mindset coach. Like what I teach, my journey, my story, why am I trying to be someone I'm not? And
Uh,
that was when it like linked. And I was like, my story is moving to LA at 19. That's like proof that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, this is my life. And then when I started doing that, my business started to pop up even more. And that was really the key for me to being like, why am I literally trying to not be who I am? Like, I think, and this is what I was saying to you on the last podcast, like you have this common thread through like every iteration of who you are, like, and it doesn't matter the thing that it's doing, it's working because it's you.
mm,
And that's the common thread where I was trying to be like, Tanya the dancer is dead. And now I'm trying to be this new me, which served its purpose to a degree to help me just be so focused on the business. But I got to the point where I was like, it's not even different. There is no difference.
that's pretty cool. I never even like thought about it like that. Because all I keep thinking about is like Claude before Nova, like literally had to die. But at the same time, now that you just said that, it's like I'm still here. There's still part of me before that. Like, but there's like this transformation, this like I know what you're saying. And I think I've experienced it then and experiencing it now and like wanting to still be this like, because that's now what people know me as. And letting go of that, tapping into my feminine and like, it is really scary. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that, which you also do very well, because what I'm hearing is, yes, you had these doubts and fears, but you still showed up for your business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
Like,
non-negotiable. Like I was all in from from the get-go. I don't know why or how like I was, but this is kind of like how I move. It's like when I'm locked into something, I'm like I'm an all or nothing type of chick. Like, and I've kind of always been like that. Even with jobs, if it was something that was just like a quick filler for my pay or for rent, I didn't give a fuck. Like I was just like like if it was like a go-go gig, I would be late. Like I wouldn't be terrible. I'd just be like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, I'm either all in and I'm giving it my all. I'm going above and beyond. I want to do my best. I'm committing,
yeah.
or I don't care. So the reason why I cared so much about my business is because I really believed in the message because my life really did transform. So I was like, I'm so excited about it and it's worth navigating this much uncomfort.
Yes. And what has been like the most uncomfortable part? Because your page is like awesome. I mean, you talk about like manifestation, don't quit, believe in yourself. Like it's very, very like positive.
Hmm.
So, do you ever kind of like talk about when things don't go right? What has been, hold on, let me ask you one question at a time. But what has been the most uncomfortable part since starting your business for you?
Um,
Besides like the identity stuff, has there been any challenges?
I think that now where I'm at, like last year was a really challenging year, I feel like, for the world. Like, I don't know what the fuck was in 2023, but it was like lessons on lessons. And I think the biggest challenge would be finding my own lane in an industry that I felt like I was learning how to build a business. And I mean, you know what it's like. It's very like copy paste, like everyone's doing the same shit, all the same way of speaking. And it was trying to find my voice in a coaching business, which was also part of my like fear of showing my voice and claiming that and starting to speak and putting my thoughts out there, not what I thought was like approved by whatever. So I think that was like, I don't even want to really call it a challenge because it's actually really fun when I realized that I was trying to find my voice. I was like, finally, like I feel confident now as like who I am. Like I'm ready to like put my shit out there. I'm ready to have a podcast and be like, these are my opinions. These are my thoughts. Like this is what I believe. I'm not saying you're wrong, but this is what I believe. And I have this, and this that backs it up. And I think, and you know this, the longer you're in this journey, the more evidence you have to support whatever you're thinking, believing, and whatever. I don't even know if I'm answering your question, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no,
But
absolutely.
the biggest challenge was last year. There was like a few months where I wasn't inspired to sell anything, create anything new. And I was though, and it was flopping. Not like nothing was working anymore. I wasn't excited about it, but I was then putting my shit out there because I was like, well, I need to pay rent. I need to make money. So I should try and sell this. But it wasn't working. It wasn't landing. And then I surrendered into something's not working and I need to listen. And then that was really hard though, because we just moved into this house and upped our rent by like thousands and thousands of dollars. And that was like, yeah, that was like all my money fears, all my money bullshit flew right up back to the surface. Very much who I was pre all of this mindset work started to come out, the fears. It was like doing a loop around, like it brought me back to that moment where I was like, I'm going to invest in this money course so I can elevate my wealth consciousness. Like who I was then was starting to come out, being like, I just up my rent and I need to make money. So I don't care about how I feel. Let me just put shit out there. And it
Yeah,
just wasn't working because it wasn't aligned. I didn't give a shit about it. I was not that I didn't care about what my clients were doing or what the product was. I wasn't lit up to sell that thing. You know,
right.
I was doing it to make rent.
Yeah.
So it obviously wasn't working. And so I just sat in it. That was not
Sit
it.
in your shit sometimes. Like just sit in the suffer, sit in the suck. And
Yeah, and
that's
it
what I
was,
was talking to you about earlier. It's like instead of just doing more, because I was in a similar spot as you where I felt completely unmotivated and couldn't understand why. Like, where did my passion go? What's happening? And I think that that is just sometimes the elevation, like the 10xing that we have to do of, okay, letting go of all the things that we don't align with anymore, and the only way we can do that is to just chill the fuck out.
yeah, it was giving myself the spaciousness to realize what I actually want for the next phase of my business.
Yeah.
And I think since I started my business, I was doing it. And I realized too, even when I moved into this house, I was just running my business the way that I had from the beginning. Like I was just put out a program, do the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. And I actually didn't want to do that anymore. I felt really like burnt out from continually creating new things, but I was like, this is how it works.
Yeah.
Um, but it was the best thing because in that spaciousness, I realized I don't even like the structure of my business. Why the fuck? Why am I pumping out courses every few months? Like, what do I want to talk about? And then through this spaciousness, I was able to look back on my year and a half and I was like, I really love teaching X, Y, and Z. That's what I want to do moving forward. And I taught a bunch of things, which was great and needed. It's like trial and error, It's like once I got here, I was able to see further because I had more things to play with. But what ended up happening, the coolest part about that is I went through like 2 or 3 months of like just really uncertainty and not really sure what I'm doing
Yep.
and allowing myself to just kind of sit in it and figure it out, finding my voice, realizing I don't like the way I've been running my business, all of this shit. But what came on the flip side of that was a mastermind that I have now. It's like my signature mastermind. And December was my biggest month by like a long shot. Followed,
Amazing.
like by a long shot, followed by like November being one of my smallest months because I was still in it. But I was in it, but I got the download, I got the idea, and I, for the first time, didn't just quickly put it out there and sell it. I like sat with it, I created it, and then I did a very intentional launch with it. And it was like December was my biggest month, January was my even bigger month. And now the phase of business that I'm in is like completely different. And it's me, and it's like created by me, for me. Like it's just so much better.
I love that. And that's that feminine energy that we're talking about. Just really like sitting back, letting the downloads come in, sitting in the stillness and doing what we love, not like, because you said something earlier about like it was I was doing it to pay the rent. Once your purpose becomes like money, or it's like the number in your Stripe account, or oh, I got to do it to pay rent, that shit's gonna
Yep.
dissolve really fast.
Yep. 1000%.
Yeah. And also your story is just so inspiring because, and I want all the ladies and the women and the moms, I have a lot of you out there that want to do something, that want to create something. And if you believe it and you have that inkling and it makes you excited, like just know, like Tanya didn't just sit on that. You acted on it over and over again. Even hearing you talk about like creating a bunch of courses, like sometimes you don't know if it's going to land or stick. Sometimes you're like, I don't know. We don't know. But what we don't do is don't act. And I always say messy action better than no action at all.
Yep. And that phase of my life, actually haven't spoken about that phase yet in my world, but I'm going to, because that period, those few months that were really, really challenging, where I had to sit in this bullshit again, like I had to sit in this uncomfort. Now, and seeing what unfolded and the way that I navigated that made me a better coach. I'm a better mentor. I have way more trust in myself. I have way, like when I'm having like any type of uncertainty, I'm chilling. Like I'm like, I've got no fear because it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I have way my trust level in, like my trust muscle in the universe was strengthened so hard by that time. And it's propelled me it was what I needed to become who I am now, attract the caliber of clients I want to attract now. I needed to go through that.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking on what you were just sharing with your community around like taking the action, something that was paralyzing me, I think back then, was that I didn't have the full picture. Like I didn't know what the next phase was, what
Yeah.
I should do to get there. And I wanted to have this perfect plan. And then I just was like, my mentor at the time was like, you just need to take one step and then from there you'll see further. And she was really encouraging me to do a podcast. I was so against it. Don't know why. I was like, I don't want to fucking do a podcast. And so she was like, just take a step. And when you're there, the next step will show up and then you'll move. And the podcast was the first thing I did coming out of that slump. And it refueled my fire. It was me finding my voice. I was putting myself out there in a whole different energy. And then it just snowballed into the download for the mastermind. And then that was the step. It really was that. Just I took one step that I had the idea for.
Yep.
And then the rest came.
That's right. It's never a perfect plan. I never know, like, what's this going to turn into? I have no idea. But you take that first leap that feels like absolute death, the lump in your throat, you're going to puke. Like, I don't know. Am I making a fool of myself? but those moments when you just act despite those thoughts and those fears always lead to pretty great stuff.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And even if that thing that it leads to isn't what you get there and you may be like, you know what? I don't know if the business was for me. I don't know if the whatever was for me. From there, the next path will show up, but you still needed to get to that point. Like it wasn't like it was a waste. It wasn't any of that. It was like the next step on your journey to get
Yep.
you to the next step. Like it all mattered. It all played a part.
Yeah. And I just have to say, Tanya, like, I love your certainty. When I was like, I can't say you like manifest a baby or a being, but like I was like, I want a being that's like certain, confident, and you are all of those things. Like, even though you went through what you went through and there were dips, and I don't know, I'm stepping into this mindset coach, like you show up very authentically as you and very certain, like it's beautiful. So can you tell my people where to follow you and where they can learn more about you?
Yes. Well, firstly, thank you so much. Best compliment ever.
I mean
Love
it.
that. Thank you. So yes, I am on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. My Instagram is at the Tanya Jane, and I'm there pretty much daily. I have my podcast, the Big Dreamers Bible podcast, and there's two ways to work with me: my mastermind, which is the Extraordinary Mastermind, and a new program that's coming out that I haven't announced yet, but it's going to be basically like the A to Z framework on pursuing your biggest dream. Like I'm putting together basically what I said to you in this episode of like going back, dissecting what worked, what didn't work. Because the most frustrating thing for any big dreamer is not knowing like why something's not working. Like it drives you fucking bananas.
Yes.
So I have spent months creating this based off what I believe has really been the keys that brought my biggest dreams to life again and again and again. So that'll be coming soon.
Oh, I love that. Very excited, Tanya. I'm going to take that course.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tanya. Anything else? Any like, what's your number one tip to give to all my mamas out there, all my women sitting there, like feeling a little hopeless, a little down?
Yeah. So what's funny is like I had this thought come in like just right before you asked me like where people to find me, and I was like, this would be my number one tip. That's so weird. So perfect timing. One of the biggest things that I use for myself to whether I'm questioning something, I'm doubting myself, or the fear's kicking in, or just any type of emotion that's coming up that I'm like, oh, it feels icky or sticky or whatever, is asking myself the question, what am I making this mean? Because what I've come to realize is literally no matter what the circumstance is, no matter what the situation is, that situation is neutral, and I've assigned a meaning of either positive or negative to this situation. It doesn't, and just realizing that and asking myself that question has helped me move through stickiness, ickiness, thoughts, doubts, limiting beliefs, you name it, fast. Because I'm like, what am I making no one saw my Instagram post mean? What am I making that mean? Am I making it mean no one cares, no one's going to sign up? Is that even true? No. So what do I want to make it mean? What do I choose that this is going to mean for me? My next post is going to be even better. I'm going to take this and repost it tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. Like that power is everything. So that question is like my go-to.
I love it, Tanya. You are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, your energy, all of it. It has been awesome having you here.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.